Okay. So good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. I am Stephanie, founder of Love Lotus Evolution, and I am here to help bring inspiring stories to you every week. And I am also part of the Love Lotus Evolution community, where we are all about helping you find your inner greatness. Today, I'm super excited. As I mentioned yesterday when I was in the interview with Kelly, that I am blessed to have two lovely ladies this week. And today I have my fabulous Pam with me. Super excited to bring her on and share her story. She's been through quite a bit and has such an amazing journey to share with everybody today. So I'm going to pass this on over to Pam. And Pam, go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Oh, who am I? I'm just now discovering who I am, but it's pretty good. I left Michigan when I was 22 years old and moved to San Diego, California. I lived there for 40 years and I flew by the seat of my pants. I was involved in 8,000 things. I never was present. I never was grounded. I thought I was living my authentic dream. And after 40 years of living in San Diego, my husband decided he wanted to move out of California. So I chose to move back to Michigan. That was quite the adjustment for me after being out of here for 40 years. And it was a whole brand new environment, whole brand new world, whole big letdown, a whole big disappointment. I figured I was going to move back here into the loving arms of my family, my sisters, my brothers, my aunts, my everybody, but it just didn't work out like that. I moved back here and I found myself in a lonely, lonely, lonely place. Where in California, I never felt like I was lonely because I was just involved in so many things: arts, food, dancing, stand-up comedy. It was an exciting life. But now I'm back here and I am also a barber. I've been a barber for 45 years and I've got a lot of enjoyment out of that. I just recently got a barber job after the COVID was over with, and I wasn't looking for that job. That job found me. And after a year and a half of being locked up in the house with my husband, this job was the greatest thing that happened to me. It saved my life. I actually have been there for 3 months now, not wearing a mask, telling jokes, laughter, helping people. It's just the greatest thing that came into my life at the most perfect time, which filled me full of happiness, excitement, fulfillment. And now I feel that this thing, the COVID's over with and the barber job is moving me forward to actually put the pieces to the puzzle in my life in the search of spirituality.
Beautiful. And I know we're going to go a little more in depth when it comes to the journey part. But I definitely want you to touch more base too about like, I know that was a really big transition for you moving from California, back to Michigan and then like reinventing yourself. Like I really felt like, you and I talked about how it was like you kind of went through that dark night of the soul all over again. Um, so kind of going before we get there, we're going to go all the way back to childhood because I feel that this is a big topic for a lot of us, where a lot of our rewiring came from, our social conditioning, and a lot of it on our healing journey. Um, would you like to explain a little bit about like what your childhood was like, some of the struggles, some of the accomplishments, and some of the biggest lessons for you?
Well, I hope I can tell the story without crying.
And if you do, that's fine because that, really resonates with a lot of us. I mean, I might even cry a little.
Well, my childhood was very traumatic. My childhood was trauma. My mother and father were married, and when I was 3 years old and my sister Bonnie was 4 years old, my father abandoned us. After that, my mother married one alcoholic right after another. That when I was a young girl, 5 years old, I used to see these men beat her, abuse her, And those were my father role models. Okay. So I was a daddyless daughter. And if you know about the daddyless daughter syndrome, it's the worst thing that can happen to a little girl. My mother, I came to realize after I traveled through the dark night of the soul and realized things, that my mother also was a narcissist. My sister Bonnie and I were the oldest in the family. She married different men, so we had a mixed family of yours, mine, and ours. Because my sister Bonnie and I were the oldest, we were the homemakers. We'd go to school, come home from school, do laundry, do dishes, get dinner, do dishes, go to bed, get up the next day and do the same thing. I never was given a toolbox. I never knew what a healthy family looked like. I never knew the joys of family. I became very codependent. I was pregnant at 16 years old. I was still in high school. I believe the best choice for me back then would have been to give that baby up for adoption. So the baby would have had a better life. And I could have gone on with my high school and at least try to salvage something out of that awful childhood that I lived in. But my mother made the decision that she was going to bring us home and keep me and the baby in the house, which that was basically my mother's MO. If she couldn't get a dog, then she'd get a baby. Well, she couldn't have her own baby. So now she has my baby, which is her granddaughter, which I feel take the focus off Nancy's life and, look at my new granddaughter and blah, blah, blah. Well, that was traumatic too. I was no more ready for a baby than I was ready to fly a 747, all right? But I struggled with that. And because of my childhood, then I put everything that I didn't learn or did learn onto my daughter. And to this day, my daughter is 50 years old and she still doesn't talk to me. That is no fault of mine. That is because my daughter never got her toolbox or came to realize how important family was or how to have a healthy relationship. So my daughter lives in trauma and disappointment with her abusive boyfriend now, but refuses to leave him, but could condemn me forever for the choices that I made in my life and shamed me and exiled me out of her life. So that's very confusing to me, and I don't understand that at all. So also, when I was probably 11 years old, I was molested by my uncle. Me and my sister Bonnie both. We didn't tell because kids don't tell for whatever reason that is, but my cousin Kathy knew what was going on and she wrote my mother a letter. Dear Aunt Nancy, Uncle Jim is doing bad things to Bonnie and Pam. So the whole thing came out in the open, and my grandfather had my uncle thrown in jail. They threw him in jail. He had a drinking problem and he was just that kind of a guy. So he got thrown in jail and they pressed charges on him. But my aunt went to my grandpa, she's the baby of the family and had a lot of influence over her father, and begged and pleaded for them to let him out of jail. And they dropped the charges and let him out of jail. Well, Christmas time was right around the corner and we're going to my grandfather's house for Christmas. And me and my sister Bonnie and my cousins are all instructed. Your Uncle Jim is coming for dinner. I want you girls to greet him with a smile and say, Merry Christmas, Uncle Jim. And then we have to sit across from the dinner table and look at my Uncle Jim, and total confusion, as you can understand, would come into my mind that it's like, is that okay? Is that okay that that happened? Like, it's just something that you just swallow and shove under the rug. So these were just examples of my display when I was a young girl that should have been being molded into something spectacular, but I missed the bus on that one. So I raised my daughter. I married her father when I was only 17. And of course, that only lasted 2 years because we were both kids, 17 years old with a child and responsibility like that. And so we ended up getting a divorce, and then I got an apartment with my girlfriend. Honey, will you close that door, please?
Are you on your class group?
I am on my class.
I thought you were leaving for the class.
Okay, so there it is. Okay, so of course. Yeah, so anyways, by the time I was in 7th grade, I'm going back here now, I became a class clown. I started doing things in class that made other people laugh. And I believe in 7th grade, I met my joy guide. I know that now because I know about guides. That joy guide saved my life, saved my sanity. And at that moment, I learned that that was a gift of mine to make people laugh.
Mhm.
And I carried that through my entire life. Even when I moved to San Diego, California, I became a stand-up comedian. So I always was finding ways to laugh and make people laugh, and never knew that I really had other things to address, and just figured that my life was pretty normal and blah, blah, blah. I had developed PTSD and anxiety to the point where when I lived in California, I felt like my body was vibrating at 5,000 RPMs. I couldn't understand that then, but I do understand that now. So the anxiety and the PTSD basically were in my life heavily. I couldn't settle down long enough to figure anything out because I hadn't come into the spiritual awakening and I didn't know anything about that. I had learned how to be positive when I moved to California because some of my friends said, oh, you're so negative and you're so full of hate and you're so angry. You need to change that around. So I bought a book on a positive attitude, how to be positive. And I guess my journey started back in California earlier on, but I wasn't grounded enough to really hear what was going on or know what was going on. So it was a very rough childhood, very rough. And when I came into awakening, the grief overwhelmed me. All the decisions, all the bad decisions, all the choices that I had made in my life that brought me to where I was at 65 years old. All the opportunities, all the love, all the people that I had in California that were my new family, the most beautiful place in the world to live. And I took it all for granted because I didn't know any better. I just didn't know Pam, and I didn't know, I was lost. I was so lost. It was very rough for me.
Yeah, it definitely was. And it's like, it was like you noticing who the old Pam was, the lost Pam, and then, seeing the Pam that you truly are, that in between is the hardest part. The
Oh
things that
God,
we
yeah.
allowed us to go through and how long we went through it and when we'd shut our mouths for things, when we should have spoke our voice.
Yeah. But we didn't know how to speak our voice. We didn't know how to speak back then. I didn't know how to speak and I didn't know what to speak. I was basically brainwashed and I was molded or not molded. And yeah. Can you excuse me while I get a tissue?
Oh yeah,
I'll be real quick.
absolutely.
Okay, better.
Well, and so for a lot of people who don't know, because like I said, this is a real authentic interview. There's definitely no editing, none of that. Everything is in the feed as it needs to be. For a lot of you that don't know this, Pam and I are actually related, but we were separated all of our lives. With her being in California, and me being raised in Michigan, we in the last year were reunited, so to say, through spiritual universe, how it works. Pam had moved back to Michigan, was going through her dark night of the soul in a way, another, her new cycle. And we were reintroduced through Facebook. But it's interesting how, growing up, how these same people in our family can really affect us. And I didn't have the full effects that and experiences that Pam went through. But as a child, with her mother Nancy, she was my great aunt. And she had a lot of effects on me growing up with confidence and the self-worth because she was very narcissistic, along with my grandfather, which is Pam's uncle, Jim. He was my grandfather. And again, even though I didn't experience what she experienced, there was a lot that those two, Nancy and Jim, had in play in my life, along with Pam's. So it was, even though mine wasn't as traumatic, I still had to learn to let go of the things that they had said to me growing up as a child. They would pick on me a lot, especially about my weight, how I looked, being Laura's daughter. They would nitpick. I was the nitpick child, that they would pick on, in the younger generation after Pam had moved to California. So it's interesting how her and I still had a tie, being bullied, or, having these experiences with the same two family members. So I did kind of want to put that out there, since we are being very open and real about everything in the interview.
Mhm. Being shamed. It's an awful thing as a child to be shamed like that.
I still have a hard time wearing flaunty dresses due to how Nancy was, but when I had found a cute jungle dress. I think I told you this. I had found a cute little jungle dress at a yard sale with my mother one year. And I was probably about 11, 12. And I had always been chunky, and we'd gone over to Nancy's house, and I was so excited about this dress. It just fit right. It had like the little dangles at the bottom and everything. And I walked out and she goes, "Laura, you're going to let her wear that in public? I don't think that's suitable because she's too big for that." It was always about weight, and I think going on, wasn't she always big on like how she looked and how she presented herself? And that is a big thing and part of like the narcissistic relationships.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Nancy was always taken care of, always looking good, always took care of Nancy, while I just flailed washing dishes and never nothing, never taught how to dress, never. And here's another fact that I just happened to bring up. Here's another awful thing that I went through. I have learned that even when I was a child and had no one encouraging me or giving me a toolbox, that I had something that I possessed inside of me that was a greater strength than I ever knew. My cousin Peggy and Kathy, the Marnacks, were always the big, wonderful family. And they did recitals, dance recitals, and had all these cool little glitter dresses. And the family would all go watch them and just cuckoo caroo and just, oh, the Marnacks and whatever. So finally, when I came into 7th grade, Jim Bancroft, my mother's new husband, which was finally the greatest father example that I ever had. But by then I was like, what, 15, 12 to 15. And by then the damage had already been done. But he bought me a flute so I could be in the band in 7th grade, okay? So I took the flute, and anything that I ever did back then, I did on my own encouragement, my own moving forward, my own self-talk. And I don't know how the hell that ever happened to me because I was never taught that. I just had something deep inside of me that I know today had lived there forever. And so it's like, I'm going to be the best person in the band. I always held first chair. And then we had a chance to do conference solos. Oh, I'm doing conference solos. So all my family can come watch me and make big over me, okay? And I practice and practice and practice. Finally, 6 months later, the conference is on. And I'm up on stage doing my solos all by myself in 7th grade. Who's in the audience of my family watching me? Not one member of my family, not one of them. So it's like, I was brave when I was young, and I don't know where that came from, but I realized that today, how brave I was back then. And now that I have become awakened in my spiritual journey, how brave, super brave I am today.
Mhm. And I think what I relate with that is because I kind of had similar with that, that internal strength, and I call it the strength of the black sheep. Where we were at a young age put into that, almost like that black sheep position, so we could bring through our own strength and our own independence. that we could learn to not count on anybody else, because at the end of the day, we had our backs and it didn't matter. You know, we were taught at a young age as a warrior to have that trained into our wiring, you know, because look at how much that has brought us through, you know, and how many challenges and struggles and experiences that did not break you. You know, we keep
Yes.
getting up and we keep going. It's that warrior mindset. And we had to have that at a young age in order to make it through as adulthood, to lead all the other people we need to help, you know, to help.
Yes, I agree. Yeah.
That's a big part of it. So I know you did like a lot of committees, and it was like the time of your life in California, and coming here to Michigan and, you know, recreating and everything. What are some of the accomplishments that you've made so far through your journey?
My accomplishments. Okay. After my dark night of the soul, these are my accomplishments now. I'm in full mind-body connection. Full. I never realized, okay, another thing, most of my life was like this, in anxiety and tension, and from just all of it. Now, my shoulders no longer touch my earlobes. I have been on 10 years of Xanax and sleep meds. Today, I am Xanax free and I am sleeping on my own. I accomplished that through my spiritual journey and also through cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia and anxiety. YouTube has been the go-to place for me. Like when I'm at work and I just got done with a 6-week childhood trauma study, and I'm at work and I'll think about these things, and then I'll get on my phone on YouTube and I'll search childhood trauma, and it comes up with all these array of things. So I always click on the one that's at least an hour, and then I do to watch later, save later list. So at night when I'm at home and it's the end of my day, I turn on the YouTube and I study the things that I've downloaded into my channel. And I actually have a notebook that's like this thick that I take all my notes on about everything I've learned about that and why I am the way I am. Hi, buddy.
You gonna say hi? Hi. He's always got to come check in. Yeah. Let me go get his channel quick. I'll be right back.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay. I no longer look outside of myself for validation. I mean, I can really understand why I did that because I was never validated growing up. So everything that I needed, I had to look outside of myself for. I don't do that any longer. Anything I need is right inside of me, or with my spirit guides, or with my teaching, or any of the above. I remember last night, Kelly talking about the vagus nerve. Okay, I learned about the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is one thing that helped calm me down from my anxiety and my sleep disorders. And I would do that at night when I'd go to bed and try to go to sleep and do the vagus breathing. And it's the most amazing, simple technique that can turn around your insomnia and your anxiety. The breathing techniques, they're wonderful. And
Definitely,
believe
and we're gonna
me,
make note in that too. Like, because I always put comments in the videos after we're done with the interview, and I'll make sure to put that in there about like the breathing techniques. If you even have some YouTube links you want to shoot and put in the
Okay.
comments, we can do that too.
okay, all right.
Just
Yeah.
so people have the access to what you're talking about.
Okay,
that's
I'd be glad. Yeah, I'd be glad to share that. Definitely. I tell you, there is so much in the YouTube that is just like, I have this whole library that reaches from here to heaven.
Yeah, and that's what I love. I'm so glad we're in the era where we have like YouTube, capabilities at our fingertips, because I think it's really helped us on our journeys, because years ago, lifetimes ago, we would spend dedicate a whole lifetime to a certain profession or a study, or for healing. And in this day and age, it's like we've taken all of these lifetimes and we've been able to mold it all into this, so we're able to bring through our lives, work on these traumas, and then have access to so many different versions and studies and classes and podcasts that we're
Yeah.
able to go like wildfire
Yes,
for.
yes, yes, Stephanie. I remember when I used to go out and buy a ton of books, okay, with a highlighter. Highlight, 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 highlight. It's just like, wow, now the input of information's over the top. And what's really good for me about that is, okay, I got 65 years to catch up on, to really develop myself into this superpower situation, spiritual, whatever. And because of the input of YouTube and all the information, dude, I should be there real soon.
Yeah, like look at how far we've come in just a couple of years, because
Yes.
like I say a year, 2 years, but it's been about 2 years, right? Like where you were at, like you said, when you came here, you were in that dark night of the soul. I remember you were feeling, lost and depressed, and I was right behind you, like right before that, I went through my big changes, quit my job, and out of like out of nowhere, I was like, I just got to go with the wind. Like, I don't know what it is, but there's something more I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm going for the ride.
Yeah.
And how much we've excelled, and how many people I even see like mentees and stuff, and people who are newly awakened, how fast they're catching on to the grounding and the healing and finding their purpose is, like I said, it took all of our lives, and all of a sudden it takes us all like 2 years,
Yes.
like to really start shining. And it's just amazing how fast that we're able to get on track now.
Mm-hmm.
Any other accomplishments since you kind of came here that you would like to talk about? Because remember, we did that rice experiment, the group rice experiment.
Dude, that's in part of my notes, okay, on the people and the things that were my go-to. That was one of your questions, who helped you along your spiritual journey?
Mhm.
And that came from the Sage Method. The Sage Method. I had the opportunity when COVID first rolled in, when I first was on my spiritual path, and they had offered a discount, and this was during COVID, and it only cost me like $49 when normally it's like $350. So I thought, what the heck, man, I'll join on to the Sage community. So I was all hands on, all in the sacred circle, all of it. And then they had this thing on there one day about the Black Rice Experiment. I'll tell you about that Black Rice Experiment. Stephanie knows, but I'll tell everyone else, okay? If I ever had doubted my own power of positive and negative energy after I did the rice experiment, it absolutely changed my life. And the rice experiment, I'll explain it a little bit, is that you take 2 jars with the same amount of cooked rice in them, and one is labeled positive and the other is labeled negative. You put them about 6 feet apart on a stand somewhere in your house. And I would go to the negative jar first off, because I wanted to get the negative out of the way. And I would take the jar and I would hold it in my hands. And I used negative words and visualization onto that jar because of the COVID thing that was going on, the Antifa, the burning of the cities, the grief of my life and everything. And I tell you, I even cried on that negative jar. Then I put the negative jar back up there, and I'd bring the positive jar over to the window, and I would kiss it and call it beauty. And I would transmit the energy of excitement after COVID was over with, after my journey had finally settled down a little bit, and just put all these positive things into this rice. I am not kidding you. At the end of 30 days, you look at the positive rice, and it's still white like it was when I put it in the jar. And the negative rice had turned black and moldy and nasty and fungusy and all of the above. And I looked at that and I'm just like, whoa, are you kidding me? Then somebody suggested, I think it might have been you, Stephanie, that I did it telepathically. So I did the same experiment all over telepathically and the same exact results. After
Mhm.
that, I knew that I could no longer harbor negative in my mind. I could no longer harbor hate and anger because my vibration was so strong. And to this day, I have shared that black rice experiment with everyone I think that could use it. And when I talk to someone and they're in a negative and they're complaining about someone who's done something, I go, dude, you know what? All you're doing is creating your own black rice in your gut. That's all you're doing. And they stand back and they're like, oh my God, you're right. Don't think and act like that because you are the one who is suffering the damage of someone else's. Okay.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it shows
So,
us, like how you were saying, like what really surprised me about this rice experiment is the first time you went through it, speaking the words. And the second time, so that's showing us how powerful our words are, not just to ourselves, but to others. And then the second time, what you're saying is it showed us how much our thoughts really affect things. So our
yeah.
words can affect things, so do our thoughts, because I mean, there were some really nasty jars in that group because we did a whole live group challenge for other people to join us on that second one. And the results were just, oh,
Yes. It was an eye
but I
opener,
learned I
man.
couldn't hate properly. I learned I didn't hate properly because for some reason, both of my jars were pristine. So I don't know what I did wrong for the group challenge, but I was like, I don't know if I want to test it, but I look, this rice still looks pretty edible.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was pretty cool. That
It was.
changed
That was
everything.
a big accomplishment for us to understand how powerful our thoughts and our words are in that.
I told you also after the rice experiment, because I hadn't reached the place where I could put happy in my mind. I don't even know if anybody ever really gets there, but I noticed like, okay, my husband is a narcissist, okay? So I live under the same roof with him and we were both retired at the same time when I was going through my dark night of soul and my whole transformation. If you don't think that took some power to get away from that. So every time he would rile me or negative bash me or whatever, I didn't feel like I was fast enough to bring in spirit I would start singing a song. And this song came in my mind immediately. You are the champion, not we are the champions. You are the champion. And I would sing that song to myself. And by singing that song to myself, raise my vibration enough that I could just completely melt away from all that nonsense.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's such a good point because it's like I've noticed with especially a lot of us that are more comical and trying to always find like the humor and things. And like you coming from experience of, comedy, being a comedian, we notice that a lot of comedians are usually some of the saddest people, the most broken people.
Yes.
And their mission and our mission is to bring happiness to other people.
Yeah.
That those little happy moments that make us laugh, keep us going. Even if it's the darkest moment, we'll find something in that mundane scenario to laugh at.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I may have just had my ass beat, but I watched him stumble on the leg. That's what you get, haha. And we would find something in the matter to make it more comical to raise our vibrations in it.
Yeah.
And it is really important that we, and I noticed that like even now, if we get stuck in stressful situations, we will, or uncomfortable, we laugh a little. And people are like, why are you laughing? Because that's my nervous laugh. That's kind of what brings me out of that place to be able to,
Yeah.
cope.
Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. I've got in the habit also of I take my phone in the car with me during COVID, and because COVID was so grueling and everyone had a mask on, people were angry and whatever, I would actually take my phone with me and I'd tune into the comedian channel where they're doing stand-up all day long. So while I was out traveling around in the midst of darkness and hate and rabidness, then I had the comedy guy in the car with me telling me jokes. I laugh all the way down the street. People in the next car, they look at me and they're like, wow, now there's a lunatic. You're right. But it helps.
I'm the
It
happy one,
helps.
you're not.
Yes.
And
And funny movies.
What?
Funny movies are also a good thing to go to. I mean, anytime you can find something to make you laugh, it definitely changes your vibration. It does. It's so good for you. And
Mhm.
God dang, there isn't a whole lot to laugh about these days when you look at the media and you look at the way our world has shifted in the last 2 years is unbelievable to me. And I'm ever so grateful that I dwell where I dwell now.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah, you came in just at the right time and went through your dark night of the soul right before the whole like it whipped you into shape. I was like, I always
Yes.
imagine it's like our guides grab us by our toes and just like whip us out like a rug real quick. Like, here you go. Time to get moving.
Yes. Yes.
So speaking of that, kind of a little, like on your journey, would you like to, because I know you're like me and we really prepared for this and you kind of wrote, your answers. Name some inspiring people, books, etc., that have made an important like impact on your life.
Okay. The Sage community made a big impact on me. And anybody can join the Sage community. You don't have to sign up for all their classes or whatever, but it's a Facebook group and it's a wonderful thing to get involved with for your spiritual journey. Gaia, the stream Gaia was an absolute wonderful thing for me also. And in the Gaia, I discovered Joe Dispenza. You familiar with Joe?
Oh,
You
I
want
love Joe Dispenza. He is the guru of rewiring.
Yes.
I recommend him to everybody. Like, I think if anybody doesn't want to believe on the spiritual woo-woo side of things, if they need that scientific side, they need to go study some Joe Dispenza.
Exactly. And you can find him all over YouTube also. Okay, he's wonderful. You have been one of my inspirings, and your friend Meg, the two of you have brought things into my life and showed me a way. And like I took the spiritual classes from you, when I was in the dark night of the soul and I was in the bedroom, and I swear to God, I could have never imagined in a million years that how happy I was in California and came over here and was so utterly depressed. Never, ever could have imagined. I laid in my room for probably a week and I saw dark shadows. I felt evil. I walked through the valley of the shadow of death and I feared evil. Okay. So about the time that's it, I was going to kill myself. Okay. That's it. I couldn't take it anymore. It was just like, oh, it just was something I never experienced. So I said, I'm going to kill myself. Okay. I know I'm getting off point here, but I want to tell you this. So I come into my room. Huh?
I said, it's a good story. So you're on point.
Okay. I come into my office where I have all my prescription drugs and I take them all out and I count them. I'm counting all my blood pressure pills, all my other, and I put them in a bowl and I say, there, if you really want to leave here, you got a way out. So I sat him over there aside. It gave me comfort that I had a way out of here. But I just sat there and I looked at him and I looked at him and I looked at him. And then I'm like, I need to go on Facebook and find something, somebody, something that's where I found you. I found you in the midst of the dark night of the soul. And I messaged you, and that's when you said, oh my God, is this Pam from California? So that's how I came across Stephanie. And Stephanie took my hand and led me down the path to awakening. And so yes, Stephanie and Meg has a real good connection with me as far as she's helped me with essential oils. She's helped me with readings. She helps me with Reiki. And I want to tell you that I was in your shop last week to get a Reiki from Meg. And Meg is down at the bottom of my feet, working up to my body and gets up to my head. And she's like, okay, what is going on here? And I'm like, oh God, no, what? She goes, dude, I find no blocks in your body. I find no inflammation. I find nothing. And she worked on me for 40 minutes and she said, you know what? I think that you evolved even farther than I have. What have you been doing? So, okay, I've had a real good connection. Yeah, it was a wonderful session with her. It just confirmed in my mind that I am where I think I am. Okay, so they've been really good too. And YouTube, like I said, has been a really good go-to teacher for me. Another person who's been monumental in my life is Dr. Andrea McSwain. She's a holistic doctor here in Lansing. I don't know how I ended up at her office. Somebody suggested something, and I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. I went to see Dr. Andrea McSwain, and she treated the problem, not the symptoms. I learned how to eat differently. I dropped meat. I dropped dairy. I studied my diet for a year through blood draw. You need to leave?
He's just trying to spin the chair on me.
Oh, okay. Okay. So she really, really has helped me along my path, how to become holistically no meds. They wanted me to take meds when I was diagnosed with autoimmune. I read the side effects. Methotrexate, some kind of chemotherapy drug or whatever, and I did not take any of them. So I went to Dr. McSwain, and she helped me holistically with my foods, with my infusions, with body treatment, with talk, with, yeah, she was very monumental, and I see her on a regular basis now.
Yeah, I remember when you started with her, how you were telling me like, oh, all this stuff. And I was like, that is so awesome.
Yeah, all holistic.
And honestly, that's what we all really need is because, over time we get so used to going, to the doctors and they're always, trying to give us synthetic things. It's almost like that Band-Aid. It's not really helping with that root cause. And holistic healing really helps us get to what it is that we really need, not that synthetic,
Yeah.
medication or for the placebo effect.
Yes. Candy.
Yeah, he's jacking the candy. Let me go put him back there real quick. And you can feel free to
Okay.
keep talking a little.
Okay. Okay, I was just going to tell Stephanie that because of my inflammation, I started a vegetarian diet. I decided to stop all meats and all dairy. And I did that, and I watched my progress for 4 months and had my doctor order in lab results for me to see where my inflammation was at. And I tweaked it and tweaked it. Then I'd eat meat only a couple days a week. And then after a year, it was like, okay, finally. Just last month, I had my last blood draw. My cholesterol is down to 170, which has always been 240. My inflammation is at a all-time low. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with ozone therapy, but I've also started ozone therapy with Dr. Andrea. And you can research that later on because that's another story all in itself, but it's an all natural thing. And my husband was supposed to have a liver transplant because he had cancer in his liver. And the Henry Ford put beads in him and cleaned the tumor up, but then they wanted to do a transplant. Well, after a long study of transplant, whatever, we decided, no, that's not for us. We're not going to do that. My husband's going to be 70 this year. So then we started going to Dr. Andrea and getting treated holistically. The cancer has stayed at bay. It hasn't come back yet. And he's doing ozone therapy infusions in her office with blood.
Oh, wow.
And light therapy is just the most fascinating thing in the world, ozone. So we have an ozone kit and we have an oxygen tank in our medical room, and I drink ozone water and I do ozone ear insufflation. And yeah, it's just wonderful, holistic, man.
That is awesome. And I wrote a note for that on there, and we'll make sure we put that in the comments too, because I want to check into that a little more, the ozone therapy.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next thing is some inspiring advice or something you would like to share with those watching and listening. Anything that will help them along their journey, or any tips that have helped you.
Well, I can tell you that the journey is very painful. It's the most painful thing I've ever gone through. As you can see, I can barely talk about it without even crying still. It's very painful, but it's very worth it. No matter how bad the pain gets, stay with it. Stay true to the universe source, and the universe source will stay true to you. I've developed a faith that is unwavering. I can relax at this point in my life now because my faith in God or source is so strong that that's exactly what you need to be led down the path of enlightenment, freedom, joy, serenity, all the positive things in your life.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Sorry, I had to dip out. Somebody's antsy pants today. He said you had an interview yesterday, Mom. So
one more thing. I got this thing offline. I want to read it to everybody.
Absolutely.
Self-control is strength. Calmness is mastery. You have to get to a point where your mood doesn't shift based on the insignificant actions of someone else. Don't allow others to control the direction of your life. Don't allow your emotions to overpower your thinking. Be at peace today, knowing the Creator, God, has you.
That's beautiful. And
Yeah,
that's such a good point because it's about really about taking our control and our power back and not giving it to others.
yes. Yep, exactly.
But even the yogis say that, I think it's Paramahansa Yogananda who, states that, it's from, it's not about our reaction, it's how we respond to things, that it's not within us, it's within them, and like learning how to do that detachment, that to not
Yeah.
let anything hinder us.
That's a big thing that's happened for me too. I no longer react. And let me tell you what, I was a major reactor. I would jump up, my hair would stand on end. But I know that causes me black rice. So now I respond. And another thing, I want you to know that on Mother's Day, I went to my mom's grave and took her flowers and forgave her. I've come that far. I forgave her because she was raised by Floyd Bullock. Floyd, the narcissist of the world. And I came to realize that my mother never had been given a toolbox either in all my journey of the mother wound and the childhood trauma. So I finally have stopped with the hate with Nancy and went, like I said, went and took her, told her, I love you. I'm sorry. You never had it either.
And she
Yeah.
did the best that she could for what she had.
Yes, she did. Uh-huh.
And that's the beauty in that right there, is it's, like a lot of us are told about, like, the forgiveness aspect, and it's not just really forgiving these people for what they have done, but it's also, forgiving ourselves for holding on to that pain for so long, for allowing them to affect us the way we allowed them to affect us.
Yeah. Yep.
So
But you know what?
Forgiveness.
We didn't know any better though. We didn't know how to forgive. We didn't know how to any of that stuff. I never knew how to do anything until probably, when COVID and winter rolled into here, that was the biggest blessing of my life. Like Kelly said last night, it was a whole year and a half where she didn't have to answer, be accountable, whatever. You could just roll up into this ball and just, I'm in my cocoon. I'm in my cocoon. And now my cocoon is breaking open and I'm becoming a butterfly. And I thank God for COVID and winter. It became my blessing, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm ready to go.
That for a lot of us, it's like the ones that had already gone through like the initial awakening part of the process, when we were somewhat aware, a lot of us embraced COVID. Like It allowed us that hermit stage, that, like you're saying, getting in our cocoon, recreating, and being able to, and it really slowed down the world. It slowed down the speed for a lot of us empaths, people with anxiety. It really brought the world and slowed it down to our terms. Because I think that was another part of our, our anxiety, was when we're out in the world, it's always so fast paced.
Yes.
It's running us. And for it to slow down, it allowed us to breathe. And then the other people who were so used to the go, 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 and we're asleep, the COVID was their dark night of the soul. We're going to push you in and make you face everything you've been running from.
Yes.
So it played like a catch-22, kind of like, just with the full moons, either people have, headaches and anxiety and, no energy, or feel a little angry. And then you have the other half of the community and they'll be like, oh, I'm uplifted and I have all this energy and all this great stuff. It's always a balance, between and the awakening. So I was blessed with COVID. I loved it. I would have no problem if life was like that, except for of course, leave the restaurants open. But for the other people, it shut them right down and stuck them in their house. And the only person they had to conversate with was themselves.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I did notice that. So if you want, since I know your career is more like in the Barbary and stuff like that, but you're also a great person to connect with and share stories with. Is there a place where would you like people, if they want to contact you about your story or anything?
They could contact me through Messenger. I mean, do I have to Yeah, they can contact me through Messenger. I don't know what else.
Perfect. Yeah, because I know you
Right.
don't have a page, but I like to leave it out there if you were open for people to communicate with you to build Soul Tribe.
Yeah.
A lot of people, because I know a lot of people are going to resonate with your story because a lot of us have gone through a lot of these, experiences that are, really relatable, and we're always trying to build our Soul Tribe and community. So I wanted to leave that open for them.
You know what? I would welcome anybody who wanted to contact me through Messenger because I know that my gift is to heal. I love helping. I love talking. I'm a good listener. Yeah, those are my gifts. Yeah. So anybody can contact me through Messenger. I'd be glad of that.
Beautiful. So thank you so much. I'm just so blessed that you came on and you were willing to share your story. I know, a lot of the subjects that we talk about are touchy and, really sensitive to us because it is part of our, our inner child. And I'm just so glad that you were able to be in the space you are now to be able to share it with everybody. I do want to do a quick shout out real quick to my lovely neighbor, James. He's on Twitch. So he donated this cute little shirt. So you can find him Big JO 4725 on Twitch for any of those gamers out there. I just had to toss that out there real quick. I
Okay.
got He's being bossy. He's like, Mom, change my channel now. So with that, we're gonna just kind of wrap it up because this guy's timing us now, I guess. So again, anybody who's on Twitch, find Big JO, James Olson at 4725 on Twitch. I'm not much of a Twitch person, but I definitely wanted to give him a shout out because I'm all about, networking and supporting all of us and on all of our journeys. Again, thanks so much, Pam, for coming on. And I definitely in the future would like to do another second interview to go even deeper into more things that we can talk about as part of the community and sharing with others.
Okay, thanks for having me, Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. So anybody wants to find Pam, she's Pam Ruth on Facebook. And then of course you all know me. You can find me as Stephanie Racine or Love Lotus Evolution on Facebook and Google. So with that, we're just going to say goodbye and thank you all for coming. And Pam, I'll keep you on after I hit the recording.
Okay.
Okay, so we will just go ahead and end our live and say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.